So Mandar, you recorded a couple decisions, I think, yesterday from
the
WASM SIG. Do you just want to cover those here?
Yeah. So we actually reached like an important decision regarding how we are going to implement the API, and specifically, Istio agent will pull the OCI images, and this particular piece was the plan of record before, but then some of the other things changed later. Istio agent will stop writing images to the disk. Instead, it will just populate the inline bytes and hand it over to Envoy. And IstioD will distribute secrets to Istio agents that it will need to go fetch from OCI. The third part was optional before, but since Red Hat has come back and said that Docker Hub and K does not support the JOT-based authentication, we need to be able to distribute secrets. So this part may be non-trivial, and there was some work done in gateways to distribute secrets, and it has some security implications. So that part may take a while. And then the last part is that for this particular approach, one concern was previously raised, which was that if you have 10,000 proxies, all of which are trying to fetch from some, say, private OCI registry at the same time, then it would create this thundering herd problem. However, now we decided to just document that and potentially use a node local OCI registry as an interim kind of cache. We won't provide it right away, and we'll start off with just documenting it and then see how far it goes. So with this, we expect to have an implementation in 1.11 now.
Okay.
Anyone wants to? Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are there any comments or questions or? And Mandar, who is owning that item for 111? So we should just put that on the roadmap while I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. So Daniel owns the item. However, I think Peter is also going to own parts of it as necessary. So you can put down Daniel and Peter.
Okay.
Hey, Doug and Mandar. Sorry, I joined late. I had dropped off from the product security working group meeting today. Yeah. I wanted to understand what's happening with the WASM API, and I can totally do this later because I know there's a PR outstanding. There are quite a few comments, and there's a lot of back and forth going on there. And I haven't yet added my comments because I just don't want to complicate things. So is there already an out-of-band consensus that has happened? And if
yes, so actually we just covered it. So if you look at the first item, that is the summary of the specific things that we talked about in the WASM SIG and reached consensus on implementation. I think you can. I mean, of course, feel free to comment on the API if. But yeah, we had a lot of back and forth about how it can be implemented and what's the best way to go about implementing it. It turned out that it did not have. So the risk was that because implementation may force us into either an API or make the API unimplementable, but that has not happened. So then it basically meant that we went through some options and yeah, we went through some options, and then this option seemed most kind of most people agreed on this option, and that's the plan of record.
Okay, that's great. So that's on the implementation side. You
Yep.
are saying this does not change the current API in the PR.
That's right. It does not change the current API and the PR, so feel free to comment on the API
Okay.
of yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there are some areas still of contention on the fine details there.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine. This is good for me, and that's what I wanted to cover in this meeting. Thank you.
Sure. Anything else? I know, Rob, you're still concerned about security issues around secret distribution. So that's something we'll probably have to tackle in the implementation.
Yeah, I think it was kind of minimized in our discussion yesterday afternoon, but because it's like, if you have you're using is limited to read only and it can only see these images, I think, then you're putting that on the user to make sure they're using a correct secret. And the analogy I would use would be like the default pull secrets that you would configure in a Kubernetes instance, right? That users don't have access to those for polling things. They're only used at the infrastructure level, because there may be other, besides just, I can, be malicious with this. Organizations might be concerned about users using those secrets to pull down images that they don't have licenses to, and those kinds of things. So, I mean, those aren't really things that are obvious when you first look at it, but those could complicate things for users. And I think it just sort of ends up being, kind of bad practice to be passing those around, because then they're not really secret, right? You lose control of them.
Okay. So that is something we need to at least address in the design. Okay.
Right. So I think that if we choose this, I mean, since we have chosen this implementation, either we actually have to like fully solve that problem, and addressing concerns that Rob just described, or just loosen our promises quite a bit. And this is where the API discussion actually does come in, right? Which is that if we had our API separated as registration and use, which we have talked about before, where secrets and all that is part of the registration, and all that it tells Istio is here is where you fetch images from, and these are the credentials. And then the second part is use. Now that we have combined those two for simplicity, we are in this world where we are even considering, or we have to have secrets at every agent. If we split those two, then all we're saying is that someone in the system needs to be able to fetch images. Someone in the system needs to fetch images, and then how they're distributed, Istio decides that. So I think that we may have to reopen that discussion if doing the secret distribution correctly poses to be it becomes a difficult problem.
Okay. Is there anything else we should? I think that covers basically the state there. Is there anything else anyone wants to ask or bring up regarding WASM? Okay. The next sort of item that's come up and that there is been some discussion of is the pilot agent metrics publisher. And the desire here is to have the agent metrics get published, not just as Prometheus, but as some sort of a push to some other endpoint. And the question is whether or not we need to do this to begin with, and then what formats and how we configure it. So there's this document that Ram has put together. And he's proposing using prom to JSON as the format to get JSON formatted metrics, and using this bit of config to configure pushing them. And so I think there are a couple open questions. I just want to sort of circulate that with the group and make sure everyone had a chance to take a look at this and maybe raise some issues or propose alternatives, or let us know your thoughts. I have questions around whether or not we can reuse the Envoy metric service for that, since we already have a configuration option for publishing Envoy metrics directly to an endpoint. But anyways, it'd be good to get more of the working group's eyes and comments.
And I think one more thing I would like to highlight is that this does go against the principle of keeping less number of things in Istio, or supporting less number of things in Istio. So like anyone reviewing it should consider that as well, not just the particular design, but basically at the same time should also consider whether we should do this at all. I just want kind of more views on that as well, because there because there are other ways of getting this without adding new code into Istio. So maybe we should add some of those details from the issue discussion into the design doc.
Yeah, I think we should flesh it out a little bit.
Okay.
With that.
Yeah, if I can add, when you push the metrics to the target, would you also need some kind of credential? So the URL might not be just sufficient. This can add some other issues. So at least from the definition here, I could see you probably have a lot of more things regarding the security aspect of this. So it may not be just the username password pair, it could be certificate. This can grow pretty complex, I would say.
Yeah, I forget what exactly remote service offers, but you're right. I don't think this covers all of the concerns around authentication. Yeah, remote service has TLS settings, but I think that's it. So
I don't see discussion around using some like OpenCensus agent or OpenTelemetry agent to do the bridging.
Right.
So
yes. So that is in the issue, and that's why I said we need to bring that here, and that's why I kind of consider if we are going to do anything here at all as well, right? We like on the issue we had a soft consensus of okay, let's do it, but I think it would be good to have wider agreement on that.
Yeah, I'm not understanding this at all, to be honest. Like, why is Prometheus format not good enough, and anything else you need to do, you do it after?
So Prometheus format is what this is going to use. The question is Prometheus scraping is not possible in the use case that Rama is talking about. And because Prometheus scraping is not available, the options are you connect somehow that to the OC agent and then have OC agent do the aggregation and forwarding, or you add the ability to push metrics through that prompt to JSON, which is also a Prometheus kind of defined API. And then the next question comes in whether, well, if we're going to push things from Istio, should we use the prompt to JSON type pushing, or should we use Envoy's metric service, which already has a pushing? And that's, yeah, so those are the considerations of whether to do this at all or not. This document only talks really about how to do this if we are going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, another way to think about is there a general provider solution for metrics that extensions working group recommends?
That would be OpenCensus or OpenTelemetry agent, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So-
there are two varieties of OpenTelemetry in some sense, right? We use the Istio package metrics stuff to export anyways, and we export in Prometheus format that's scrapable. We could add a one to that package that is a publisher that pushes to one endpoint. Or we could say the solution is use OpenTelemetry, but use it as another sidecar or agent or somehow and scrape from our published into some other and translate and push. So I just wanted to put that out there.
I see. I mean, so the first solution, the Istio community does not really provide any guidelines there, right? It's for everyone to do it on their own as of now. The second solution is run an agent, but we don't really have docs or anything related to it, how to do it, what to do, how to enable that integration, right?
No, but I don't think there's anything special or Istio specific about doing that. But yes, we don't have any docs on that.
Okay, and the first solution is basically run Prometheus and then from there somehow scrape it again. Is that the first solution, or maybe I misunderstood? You were cutting off.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no. When we wrote, I think the agent uses the Istio package metrics library, and that doesn't require Prometheus. It's just Prometheus is the default exporter there, and so we could add another type of exporter and have configuration that allows you to select that and do that, and it wouldn't require running anything else. It would just require piping the config through and having that work. And that would be Istio fully owning the solution. Whereas we could say, hey, we're not going to change any of the Istio code or any of the Istio bits. But here, if you use Prometheus, here's how you write a backend for Prometheus that puts it somewhere else. Or if you run the OpenCensus agent as another piece in your cluster, here's how you get it to translate from that into whatever you want.
That's interesting, right? So from an ecosystem point of view, how does the StackDriver integration work? Currently, Istio provides a StackDriver WASM plugin. Is that how it works?
Yeah, and interestingly, for StackDriver specific builds for pilot for Istio-D metrics, we do use the one that is built into Istio package. We have an export to StackDriver bit in there. So that's why I say that is a possibility if we wanted to have something. We just have to decide on what the format is and implement it.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like if you want to have a broader, ecosystem integration, whether it's with Datadog, New Relic, or anything else, I think we can put our eggs in the basket of whatever the combined thing is, OpenTelemetry now. Yeah. And then say, Istio will natively support it, like you're saying, whether we do it in our packages or whether we deploy a new sidecar. For a user, it's by enabling a configuration option. I think that will be sleek, right? The implementation is hidden.
The issue with the sidecar, I think, and that's what Rama mentioned, right? It is easy. So there's like a split architecture here. They have already deployed sidecars with Istio-Ds because there are few Istio-Ds. right? So it's okay to deploy one sidecar each, scrape it locally, and then send it off to wherever they want to send it off to. But if you have 10,000 pods or whatever, 50,000 pods, adding additional sidecars there is not feasible. So, which is why sidecar is not an option. But we can still have a different kind of option with OpenTelemetry and just provide guide on how to do it. And because we already support Prometheus, and Prometheus is actually a fine integration point for many things.
I kind of disagree. I think we took away a lot of these capabilities when we removed Mixer. I think if Mandar, you were saying adding sidecars is just not feasible on a large cluster. I can agree with that. So why not provide a high level configuration option, and then internally in the Istio components, we switch from Prometheus to OpenTelemetry or something like that, like Doug was saying, right? That's a good way of enabling our ecosystem, my mind.
Okay, okay. So that's similar to how we are doing it with Istio for StackDriver.
Exactly, right? I mean, in fact, we could have done StackDriver also like this. I'm assuming StackDriver is compatible with OpenTelemetry now, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it all depends what level you're talking about compatible, right? So if you're talking about reading the formats, or actually just we publish directly in StackDriver native using the OpenTelemetry APIs, which is what we're doing, right? But yeah, if we, I think any of those options is possible. And so I think what I'm hearing from you, Niraj, is that you think it is worth doing, and then the implementation is something that we should focus on, making sure that it's not just, hey, here's how you run a third-party utility and how you configure it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly, right? I mean, I'm thinking about like New Relic, Signal FX, all of those probably can be enabled in one go if we start, if you have something like this. Right? A cleaner API, and where users doesn't have to go and roll out another, container and whatnot as a sidecar container, like Mandar was saying. We can talk about which implementation is better, but I just feel like switching internally feels like low cost in package,
So I think what we should do is then have OpenTelemetry exporter available for all components, right? Istio D, Istio agent. Well, those are the two. And then just make sure that it actually satisfies Rama's use case. Even if it doesn't, I think this may probably end up being a fine thing to add. But yeah, we should just check if that actually satisfies the requirements. The counter argument to doing the argument to doing nothing, right? Not this and not even anything else, is that most of the other vendors like Datadog, New Relic, they all have Prometheus integrations. So they can all deploy a Prometheus scraper which scrapes and then sends it to their things. So that is already supported, and I agree that Mixer had these dedicated adapters.
Mandar, I think there's a different problem. Think of it from a customer point of view. They will have to now manage their own Prometheus, right? Plus, at scale, and they are buying Datadog. But Datadog won't manage their Prometheus for this use case, right? So as a user, you are basically getting the worst of everything.
That's fair.
right?
How does Datadog user scrape Envoy metric today? Does Envoy provide first-class support
No,
for
they can't.
those vendors?
No, Peter, you're basically talking about the point that I added as a note in the working doc. As far as I know, the only way to do is what Mandar said, which is run another Prometheus and scrape Prometheus.
Yeah. So my point is that like the ES2 agent and ES2D is under our control. Like we can add like exporter for those vendors, no problem. But that only solves like 20% of use case of telemetry, and like most users still relies on Envoy metrics. Envoy metrics are most important ones. So
it solves more, right, if you have merging enabled. But I do want to bring in the point when you don't have merging enabled.
If we have, I'm not sure whether merge enabled would work with the ES2 monitoring package. Like, how would that work?
Yeah, that's where things start to get goofy. Merge is Prometheus specific.
Yes. What's this approach for merging? Are we just not going to support merging if we use alternative backend?
Yeah, I think you say there is no merging, which is why I was wondering if we just use the Envoy metrics service, because then if you configure that, you get the Envoy metrics, and then you get the agent metrics going to the same spot in the same format. But
except Envoy metrics service doesn't necessarily, like, it is not the open telemetry blessed thing, right? It's a very Envoy.
Yes, it also uses some Envoy internals, like the time interval between pushes is Envoy controlled, so we have to sort of proxy that.
So this same problem should happen on StackDriver too, right? So there is no concept of merging in StackDriver then?
Right. We don't publish the Envoy metrics to StackDriver in any way, shape, or form.
Got it. What about application metrics? The application has to do their own integration to publish to StackDriver, and we won't merge, and Istio agent doesn't do any merges, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so I think we should. So basically, the fundamental question here needs more re-examination, and I think one thing we need to document is what is really the status quo. We haven't. So essentially, with what is given today and a doc, what does that fully look like? I don't think we have it fully documented or laid out to consider, because if the status quo is not too bad, then, or we are okay with merging not working everywhere. That is also an option.
I think merging is an optimization, in my opinion, which is an excellent optimization that John added, right? I will be okay with it not working because it solves a Prometheus specific problem. The issue is, aside from merging also, you have the fundamental problem of how do you get access to Istio metrics. So let's see, how do you get access to, Envoy metrics? I'm guessing if for any Istio metrics like Istio request total, we will be able to create some sort of plugin, right, which will export things in open telemetry format, right?
Yep.
Okay. So the Envoy problem remains, right, Mandar?
Yes, that Envoy problem remains, but we could actually separate that, right? Like, because Envoy can potentially add on a different timeline more exporters, and it can then export to those backends
That's reasonable.
independently.
I agree with you. I just wanted to say that we should, if we document it like that, saying you can get Istio metrics in Prometheus format, StackDriver format, and OpenTelemetry format, I think it will unlock a lot of value.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Should we move on, or
Yep.
do we want?
Okay. We should. Yeah, we should just record something here to go back to Rama with.
Okay. So.
So let me help you. I think, Doug, the thing here is, can we provide Istio metrics for Istio, all Istio components barring Envoy in open tracing format? In OpenTelemetry format, right? And it looks like Envoy metrics we will have to punt. And then the other thing is the status quo solution of telling people to run Prometheus and pay for another telemetry backend probably is suboptimal. I don't know. We can document it for now, but it's kind of crappy for a user. Yep, that sounds good.
Okay, the next topic. Is Leeman still here? And she was here earlier. Leeman, are you still here?
She had to drop off in the second half of the call, but yeah, I think if you know the issue, you can just talk about it.
Sure. So, and I think Peter is the expert on host header fallback. But so there was an issue that was noticed on bare metal clusters, of all things, where we were getting a lot of junk traffic into the mesh from the open internet, where the host header was set to completely random things, not matching the source of traffic or the destination of traffic. And so that was leading to a whole bunch of time series in Prometheus with the junk service names. And that's because we were using host header fallback both at the gateway and inside the mesh. Because there's no metadata to exchange, but still we needed something to populate for service names. And so I think there's a question that came out of that work that Leeman was doing about whether or not we should be using host header fallback or if we should disable it for Prometheus. And so I wanted to sort of raise that issue for the group so we can make a decision.
So first of all, I think host header fallback is not enabled at gateway, right?
It's not correct.
Right.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I don't remember her exact setup, but I remember it wasn't sufficient just to turn it off at the gateway.
Right. Is there a which is why it's not enabled at the gateway. However, the issue comes into play if your regular, so if you're doing permissive mode and your even what we call just sidecars are just accessible from other places, then essentially they are like gateways in sense of the exposure. And is that what is happening here? Because yeah, like Peter said, we turn off host header fallback at the gateways.
Okay, so we should verify that it's totally off of the gateways. But yes, I feel like she was seeing traffic, yes, coming into sidecars, not from, not traditionally through the ingress gateway. And so there was also junk traffic.
Okay, so then in that case, if there is traffic from random places directly coming to sidecars, then in those cases, that deployment should disable host header fallback. I think that's like a deploy. That's more of a dock and deployment type decision. At least that's what I feel, because the assumption was once you protect the gateway, inside it's all controlled traffic, and there you can have host header fallback. But if it's not controlled, then you should disable it.
Do we have an option, Mandar, right now to disable it everywhere?
Yes, we do. So I don't know if it's exposed as a
Yeah,
actually
it's one of the Staccato option. Like it's
right.
one of the values, so you can disable easily with like meshware.
Yep.
And we initially add this host header fallback for Telemetry V2 only to get parity with Mixer V1's Prometheus metric definition. I mean, in Mixer V1, we have like things like if destination service unknown, we fall back to destination.hostname, something like that. Do we want to revisit that decision, or are we saying? I mean, do we want to disable it by default, or should we still like make it more clear in the document and ask user to pay attention to this?
Yeah, that's my question too. I mean, is it providing enough value that we think it should be on, or should it just be something that you turn on if you feel like you really need it?
I think this was added based on Jay's request at some point for trying to show some visualization in Kiali for failed traffic or something like that. I don't remember the use case, but I feel like I'm in your camp that we should just disable it by default.
Yeah, this host header fallback has caused lots of problem. Like people have random, like if you use IP as host header and sidecar bypass like pass through the request, we just end up like infinite time series, which is very bad.
Right. I mean, if it's only supports the case when the traffic is controlled, why would be host header be useful here? If it's already controlled within the mesh, then why is it? Why we need it?
It's a great question.
So, like, I think the value of the enable this host header fallback is that if your application is making call to the outside world, you want to have some way to be able to visualize that.
So then we can only enable it for outbound.
Yeah, but outbound also still have the will cause problem for users' application if they like use pod IP as host header, for example.
Yeah, I think this is more about the external internet, right? So, I mean, if you use Istio configs, you should probably have a list of those allowed websites, right? Unless you allow everything. Maybe we need to couple that to that option. So if you would like to enumerate all the external addresses, then we use host header, and if you don't enumerate, then we just don't.
What will they use their quad? I mean, if you have enumerated your dependencies explicitly, then the host header will be correctly populated, right? You don't need a fallback.
Well, the fallback is to because we don't record. There's no method exchange, right? That's the problem. So you have to use host header.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So basically, just use it as a fallback. Yeah, I agree with you. And then for everything else, use pass-through or something like that we used to do.
Right. Maybe we need to couple the networking option that a pass-through is allowed or not.
Okay. So it sounds like maybe we should have like just a short design doc and make sure that we've covered all the bases and then move forward. Does that sound right?
Yep. Do we have any guidance until then? Is it just disable? I mean, if we see this cardinality problem, right, that is what we tell people, right? Okay, just disable it.
Yeah, I think for 110 we should just document it well in the FAQ or something, and then spend 111 getting it right. Does that sound right?
Yep. Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay. The other thing I added to the agenda, which maybe we can delay, is roadmap discussion, just because I think we're supposed to present in 3 weeks. So I wanted to sort of get the pulse of what people think we should do for 111. But Niraj, did you add the Datadog tracer and metric support? Should we do that quickly first?
Yeah, if we can. I hope it's quick, especially after the earlier discussion. So my question was, what's the extensions working group recommendation if someone comes and says, I have Datadog and I want Istio to send tracing and metric to Datadog. So let's go with tracing first, because it looks like I've kind of gotten the answer for metric. So we currently provide mesh global and per proxy mesh config option, which enables Datadog tracer in Envoy. Do we know if it works?
I don't know that we have any tests that validate that it works, but it should be supported both by the old way and through Telemetry API, at least configuring it. I assume that Envoy has testing for Datadog tracing, but I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, so basically we are a config transporter at that point, but we don't know if it actually works. And we don't provide any of the customization options in Datadog also. Is that correct? Or do we do support customization options?
What customization options are you thinking?
Adding more tags, for example.
No, I mean, anything that's generic in Envoy, like custom tags or tag length restriction, should work for Datadog. And I think we even offer the ability, at least in the old style, of providing authentication, like a token or something for Datadog, although I'd have to look. Maybe it's just the address. But the standard tracing stuff should all work for Datadog.
Yeah, it's just the address right now.
Yeah. So that's what we support. We support telling Envoy, hey, send it Datadog to this address, and you can use the custom tags configuration like any other tracer.
Got it. So the second question then is this native Envoy integration recommended, or using the OpenCensus integration and then using the exporter? And maybe that's not a question that you guys have to answer, but I'm curious if you have an opinion on it.
You talking about for metrics too, or?
No, I'm just talking about tracing right now.
For tracing, I think it's just native Envoy. I don't believe it's with OpenCensus, although I think there's nothing stopping you from using OpenCensus to do that if you wanted.
So Neeraj, I have a meta question. So are you specifically only talking about Datadog, or Datadog and one other thing, or like what's the?
I'm trying to start with Datadog. I didn't want to devolve this, keep this conversation going, but eventually New Relic, because you have the same problem with New Relic.
Right. So I think that then we could actually take the opposite approach here. Is that we should reach out to the vendors. Like we would like to add tests, and we would like to make sure it works, but I think the vendors are most motivated to actually do that and to make it happen.
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
So I think that would be the best way to kind of solve this problem, and then we can actually rely on the vendors to provide specific, integration specific guidance on saying, okay, for Datadog, use the native one, and for something else, New Relic, they're saying something else, rather than we coming out with some guidance.
That's totally fair. I think overall, though, as a community, like if Envoy tomorrow supports New Relic, we will expose that option, or we're going to say no. Use the OpenCensus exporter. Like I'm trying to understand from an API surface point of view, what are we going to do for things like these?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the skywalking case is an interesting one, right? Because we added support for skywalking because Envoy now supports skywalking, and we've done it for Lightstep and Datadog and Zipkin. We didn't do it for X-Ray. So yeah, that's a good question. I don't know what our general.
I think someone has to push for it and ask for it, right? Like if someone from the X-Ray team sent a PR and went through the process, I don't think we have. I don't think we can refuse it because, like you said, we have 6 others, and
that's not correct, Mandar, right? We can always say, hey, we have a new, better way of doing this. Why don't you use that? The issue is, I don't know if we have an answer like that. Like, does the extensions working group say this is the better way of doing it? If you use that, we will, add docs. We will allow you to add tests, for example, right?
Okay, that's a fair point. However, if something is natively supported in Envoy, exposing it, and then if someone wants to expose it and make sure that the tests work and kind of maintain it, I would still find it difficult because someone can say that, hey, look, like we added this integration code into Envoy, and it is actually a better integration than the 2-step integration, common integration that you are suggesting.
It depends from what point of view. It might be better for a vendor who is a telemetry backend provider. It might be worse for a customer who might want to switch telemetry providers in a few years, right? So they don't have to change their application if they just use OpenTracer, for example, or OpenCensus.
Okay, so we need to have more discussion on this, or Doug, you're saying something?
Oh, I was just saying the counter argument there, Madar, is we have pushed back on using the dynamic open tracing bit of extension that Envoy provides. Right? We've said we don't want to be involved in trying to get loading of the driver in and all that other stuff. So we've pushed back on some things that Envoy provides before.
That's fair. Yeah.
Do we know how Envoy decides whether or not they're going to take an extension versus just say, hey, just use OpenCensus, since all you're asking is a gRPC endpoint?
You don't have to compile all the extensions. You just Istio compiles all of them. Generally, there is some maintainer that's responsible for maintaining it, but most custom builds of Envoy don't actually compile them in.
Okay, so they're welcoming then in that case because they don't care as long they're assuming people will compile only what they want.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to summarize for tracing, sorry, Mandar, I know it's taking longer than what I thought. It looks like the current situation is use the Datadog tracer because it's natively supported. You can try to venture for OpenCensus integration, but who knows how well that will work. That's for tracing. For metric, I'm guessing the only way to support Datadog today is to export it to Prometheus and then use a Prometheus exporter or an agent in Datadog, right? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. This was helpful.
Which was the thing that Airbnb added for
OpenCensus?
Right, and they only added it for like very specific thing, right? Okay. All right. Sorry. Yeah, we will see if that's what we want to recommend. But yeah, Datadog themselves recommend the tracer. So I just posted a link in the comment chat.
Oh, useful. Thanks, Mandar.
Yep. Yeah, they have Istio-specific instructions, and I hope they test.
Yeah, hopefully those are up to date, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have, I don't know, 5-6 minutes left. Are there things that we as a group want to see done in 1.11, either things that we didn't get to in 1.10 or have bubbled up and have since become important that we should sketch out here that I can sort of take and mold into a more official roadmap? Just any ideas here, don't hesitate to shout them out. Sounds like we have lots of ideas.
The middle telemetry for middle proxy is like perennial, but I don't know if we can promise any actual SWE hours on that right now, but it is definitely.
Are you talking about external LB or internal LB?
Both actually, like internal and external both, but just basically having good telemetry when you have an internal LB, and we don't really have a good story there.
We don't have a good telemetry for external LB either. I'm just saying, I think it's just two different big problems.
Right. Yeah. So, but the thing is, it is also the kind of problem that can actually take a quarter or sometimes even more to solve. So we need to get started at some point.
Do we want to, I mean, somewhat related, do we want to start thinking about some sort of metadata service? Is that still...
Wait, the one that Neeraj implemented in 1.9?
Yeah.
No, okay. I'm just pulling your leg, Neeraj. But yes, I think we do need to. But again, the problem is, unless basically someone here commits their time, it's just going to get on the list and then get off the list.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, there's no way I can do it. There's no code I can write.
Are there other things that we're not doing that we should be doing?
What happened to the better transport protocol or security or whatever? The HTTP Connect.
Oh, it's
been on the list for a long time, and I don't know. It's just, do we still want to put it back, or it's like?
Yeah, actually, we do want to put it back because that's a great point. Yes, because now it is imminent, like really imminent. So at some point there is going to be a migration from the old style to the new style, and we have to make sure that in the old world and the new world, telemetry works as expected. So actually, that is a really good point, because we will have to change or get rid of some of the ways we do metadata exchange, and it will be replaced by how BTS will do it.
Well, I think it needs to be prioritized appropriately. I mean, if it's imminent, like you say, and it's going to be default in like 2 versions, I think we should start on sooner.
Yeah. Okay. So then let's that's a great point. Let's move that above. Well, I guess this is not a prioritized list, but
no,
we should move it above some of the other things in that list.
Okay.
Rate limit. That's
What's
not
the story
ideal.
with rate limiting? Yeah.
It's requires Envoy filters. So I guess the
Yes.
story is that we need either an API.
We need an API.
Okay.
I suspect many of these things are also in the previous
Yes.
list. So
We did make progress with the telemetry API, guys. So we should be.
I think no, absolutely. Yes.
Slow and steady.
Some progress is good than nothing, right?
Progress.
How long did
Yes.
it take? 3 years?
Took a long time.
Took a long time.
Okay. Well,
I
think,
mean,
oh,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I think this is probably a pretty good list given what I think are constrained resourcing. So, and I think there's some maintenance work in terms of tests and dashboards and things that bubble up. So I think this is probably a pretty good list. And the release date is August. It's in August, so we have 3 months, 3 full months.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we're about time. So unless there's something else we want to talk about, I think it's back to work time.
See you, folks. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.